I just spent some time in Shanghai, China, and in this video I'm going to answer your questions about my trip and my experiences there. I got a lot of questions from you guys, also many comments on all my videos, many controversial comments. And now I'm going to tell you the truth about my trip to China. Am I being paid by the Chinese government? Am I afraid to speak the truth? Some of the comments were thinking that I won't be able to tell the truth because I'm afraid of being detained by the Chinese government or something like that. Well, I am not in China anymore, so no worries about that. I will tell you the truth. And yeah, by the way, there are timestamps for each question, so you can jump around to each of the questions that you are interested in the most. Okay, let's start right away. I have the questions in front of me on my laptop now. So first of all, the biggest difference between the China you experienced and that of which the Western media portrays. Interested to hear your thoughts. And yeah, the whole Western media versus the reality in China topic is a big one, because I can really see that many people, based on what I have read in the comment section on all my videos, do have a very wrong impression of what China is really like. So when I arrived in Shanghai, the first big surprise for me was it is super well organized, it is super modern, it is clean. You don't see homeless people or poverty on the streets. The people are very friendly. It just feels like a very modern and decent place. And I noticed that right away. I think you can even see that in the very first video. The first time I went out of the metro station, and my first impressions of the city were like, wow, this is not what I would have expected. To be honest, I would have expected China to be a bit more chaotic, because I was thinking, well, this is a city of 26 million people, there must be like chaos on the roads or unorganized, and then it was a really big and nice surprise that it was super quiet, it was calm, it was super well organized. So yeah, that was probably the biggest difference, the biggest shock, if you want to call it so, that I had based on what I would have expected. And then the next question, also a question or a topic that was talked a lot about in the comment section. What do you think about China's cashless society? Do you think you could have a journey as smooth if Joseph wasn't with you? So Joseph, my Chinese friend who you saw in most of the videos. So of course, he was a big help for me, because he was able to just pay everything with his phone, which I wasn't able to because I didn't have Alipay or wechatpay. But to be honest, I really like cashless society. Also, when I was still living in Germany, I always paid with my credit card everywhere. So in Germany, like most people, really still use cash. But over the past years, it also became kind of normal to be able to pay with credit card at least, or with your debit banking card. So when I was still living in Germany, I was actually doing that a lot as well. And that actually was very convenient all the time. I don't really like to carry cash with me, to be honest. And then in China, like most of the places, I couldn't use my credit card because I have a foreign credit card. I was told that you can, of course, use local Chinese credit cards, but they do not always accept foreign credit cards. So to be honest, I wasn't even trying to pay with credit card, because yeah, actually cash was, I would say 90% of the cases I was able to pay with cash if I wanted to. And then also, of course, my Chinese friend Joseph was with me most of the times, so he could just pay, and then I paid him back with cash later. So in my opinion, actually, I think cashless society is actually very, very convenient, and I personally actually like that a lot. And yeah, we will talk about the whole topic of Alipay, wechatpay later on in another question again. And then also a very interesting comment/question. My whole understanding of present-day China has been a lie, so I want to ask you this. How much pollution and poverty have you seen in your trip? Like, say, rate them and please explain. So I can really feel that many people have a really wrong impression of what China is really like. I can really tell you I haven't seen any poverty in Shanghai. So obviously I have only been to Shanghai. I have only been there for 6 days. So maybe my impression, you can't generalize my impressions about the whole country, I don't know how the rest of China is looking like. So all I'm saying, all of my answers are only based on what I have experienced in just 6 days and only in Shanghai. But I haven't seen a single homeless person. I haven't seen poverty. And also, there wasn't much pollution. The city is super clean. There is no trash anywhere. It's a very, very decent and clean city. And the air quality was also, compared to many cities, for example, in Southeast Asia, very, very nice. Shanghai also has a lot of green areas. I remember like very close to my hotel, there was a big green park where it was really nice to just stroll around, and I've seen parks and green areas like this all around the city. So you have a lot of green areas. The air quality, of course, it's not like being in the mountains, being in the countryside, but it didn't feel like I am in a city of over 20 million people. Once again, if I compare this to mega cities in Southeast Asia, where I spent most of my time in the past years, for example, let's say Bangkok, Manila, Ho Chi Minh City, Kuala Lumpur, cities like that feel way more polluted. The air feels way more polluted than it was in Shanghai. And then also a question I got asked a lot, what was your favorite food in China? And to be honest, I don't really know most of the names of the dishes that I tried. But for example, the noodles I tried in my first day in Shanghai video, in the food court there, they were really, really delicious. And I tried similar noodles actually many times. So the noodle dishes in Shanghai were really delicious. And then I also really liked the dumplings. I'm a huge fan of dumplings, or I was a huge fan of dumplings also before I went to China. And then trying the authentic dumplings, you can get them as a little snack by the side of the road, literally everywhere in Shanghai. So that was always a great snack. And then also the pork, I think it was pork, that I tried in my last video where we went to the Venice of Shanghai. The one that Joseph recommended that was wrapped in the leaves. That was also really delicious. Unfortunately, I don't know the names. If you know the names of these dishes, please let me know in the comments. And then the next part of his question, what are some of the main challenges you encountered as a visitor? What do you like about China? So what I liked about China was, it was very well organized. It was, I said that before. It was a clean, decent, well-organized city. To me, it seems like a very livable place, but I will also talk about that in another question later on. And also the people were very kind and very friendly, very welcoming. Also in situations where I was not with my local Chinese friend Joseph, also when I was on my own. I remember one afternoon when Joseph was busy, I was strolling around the city on my own, also a little bit away from the touristy areas, like in more local neighborhoods. And people were smiling, people were friendly. Some people were curious, like, where are you from? What are you doing here? We don't usually see Western tourists here. So they were curious, they were friendly, and that was actually really nice and something that I really liked about China and the people there. And some of the main challenges, I would say, the level of English could be a challenge because, many people do not really speak English there. So I could imagine that this is a challenge for many visitors. For me personally, I don't really mind if people don't speak English. Like, I never expect people in a foreign country to speak English. So I was like okay in situations like this where for example, I was asking for directions and they couldn't understand me. For me, it was okay. Like, that's part of visiting a foreign country where not everyone speaks English. But I can imagine that many people who are visiting China maybe see this as a challenge of traveling around or being a tourist there. And then, how have you found the air quality? Could you see yourself living there? And I think I talked about the air quality earlier already. So the air quality was actually really nice. Like, of course, not as nice as being somewhere in the countryside. You can feel it's still a city. But once again, if I compare it to like Bangkok or Ho Chi Minh City, Manila, places like that, the air quality was actually really nice for such a big city. And could you see yourself living there? To be honest, I could. Shanghai seemed to be a very livable city. I'm repeating myself, but organized, clean, also very safe. I felt very safe in Shanghai. Like, we talked about that topic in one of the videos as well. Like, because there are so many surveillance cameras everywhere, people are not afraid to like leave their bikes unlocked on the streets. Like, I remember my friend telling me about you can even leave your laptop, like for example, you sit in a coffee shop and you're going to the bathroom or whatever, go out to smoke a cigarette or something. You can leave your laptop, you can leave your phone on the table, and it will be there when you come back, 99% sure. And I personally think if you can feel very safe in your own city, that improves the quality of life a lot. If I think about some cities in Germany, for example, let's say Berlin, our capital city, there are definitely areas where even I, as a man, wouldn't go out alone, like after midnight, for example. And I just think you have such a better quality of life if you can feel 100% safe in the area where you live in. And I totally felt like that in Shanghai. So I think Shanghai is a very livable city. Also, I like that it's so modern there. I think if you're really connected with all the apps in China and you maybe know a little bit of the local language, then it is actually a very convenient life. Like my friend was telling me, you can literally order everything via app. You can do grocery shopping via the app. You can pay everywhere just with scanning a QR code. So I think it's a very livable city, modern, clean, safe, and decent. And then let's go to one of the crazy question. I got a lot of crazy, ridiculous comments as well. And these comments really show what many people think about China. One question was, did you feel under surveillance in China? No, not at all. I personally don't mind all the cameras. Once again, all these cameras make me feel safe in an area. So I did not feel under surveillance. Also, some of the comments were like, you were followed by the Chinese government literally from the moment you arrived at the airport. There were people following you everywhere. Ridiculous comments like that. So no, there was no surveillance, or I didn't feel under surveillance. And yeah, there's also one thing that I really want to mention. I got so many negative comments about China, and also many people were insulting me because I went to China. Many people accused me in the comments of being paid by the Chinese government. There were comments like, oh, I'm so disappointed, Ken, you sold your soul to the Chinese government. I'm very disappointed. I'm going to unsubscribe your channel. Many comments like this, and that really showed me how negative many people, all these comments were from Western people, as far as I can judge by their names or by their profiles. And that really showed me how negative many people in the West especially think about China, how bad the impression of China is in these countries. And that was really, really crazy. Many comments were really ridiculous. I remember one comment was like, oh wow, you must use a lot of filters in your videos because the sky looks so bright and clear, and that is not what China really looks like. Many people were thinking that my friend Joseph is a paid actor by the Chinese government. There was one comment that thought every people that you saw in my videos were hired by the Chinese government and were placed there to leave a good impression about the country. Crazy comments like that. I've never seen as many crazy comments as on my China videos in other countries before. And yeah, also like I said, many people insulting me for being to China. And that was, yeah, crazy to see actually. And then, as China is issuing a 15-day free visa, will you be visiting China again soon? What's your impression of China regarding the people, food, transport, etc.? So I talked about the people already. The people were very kind, very welcoming, helpful, curious and open towards me. The food has been amazing. I absolutely love the food. I think the only food I didn't like in all of the days I have been there was the stinky tofu that you saw me trying in the last video. That wasn't really my favorite, but all of that, but other than that, all the food I tried was really delicious. And let's also talk about the transport actually, because I haven't mentioned that yet. Also, the public transportation in Shanghai was really, really well organized, really affordable. I think a regular metro ride around Shanghai was usually costing less than $1. So I think like 5 to 6 yuan was what we usually paid for getting around the city. So the transportation is very affordable. Also taxis were not really expensive. I took a taxi around the town a few times, and usually I was paying like around $10 for like sometimes up to like 40-50 minutes of taxi rides. So like, yeah, $10-15 can get you very, very far in Shanghai. So transportation is easy, convenient, affordable. And yeah, I read from you guys in the comment section, actually many of you guys commented that on the previous videos, that starting on December 1st, China is issuing 15 days free visa for some nations, for example, Germany. So that makes it very easy for me to visit China again. And yes, I actually plan to visit China again. The videos were performing incredibly well. I can see that many people are interested to see China. And I personally am also really interested to visit more places in China. So I am actually thinking about to come back to China at the beginning of next year. So in like January, February. And I wanted to ask you guys, What places should I visit in China next time? So I have been to Shanghai already, so I would be curious to visit other cities. I was thinking about Beijing, for example, which I think is a very interesting city. And then maybe Shenzhen sounds interesting to me. Then maybe I'm also thinking about visiting Hong Kong again, where I have been earlier this year already, but I would be curious to visit again. These are just some first ideas that I have, but yeah, please let me know in the comments what would you suggest. If I have 15 days in China, which places should I visit? And then also a question that was yeah, a bit of crazy. What took you so long to visit China? Were you worried about possibly getting detained or portrayed by Western media? Were you afraid of lack of privacy and all those cameras? Were you afraid to do something wrong because of that? Were you afraid to film videos? And no, I was not afraid of all of these things. Like, I was able to film videos everywhere. You saw me even filming at the airport. Not once have I been told in China to stop filming or something like that. I was not afraid of a lack of privacy because of all the cameras. Like I said before, I don't mind the cameras because they make me feel safe. I was not afraid to say something wrong. So all of this was not the reason why it took me so long to visit China. The reason why I haven't been to China in the past years is simply because China was not open for tourists. China was, I think, the country that has been closed for tourists the longest out of all the countries in the world. They just opened, I think it was April or May this year. So yeah, that was simply the reason why I didn't visit China earlier. And then, in your opinion, how much more or less would you have explored if you were completely on your own, given the language barrier? To be honest, I think I also would have explored a lot if I wouldn't have my local friend Joseph with me. Like, as I said earlier, most of the people did not speak English. But for me personally, that was not a problem. I know how to figure out my way around in situations like this. It's not the first time I was somewhere where people don't speak English. For example, I remember visiting many rural areas in Thailand where also nobody speaks English. In Vietnam, the English level was also very low. So I have been to countries before where English is often not widely spoken. So I'm experienced with situations like this. I know how to figure out my way around. You can use Google Translate, for example. You can use Google Translate to translate pictures or signs or restaurant menus. So I think I would have also explored around as much as I did without my local friend with me. And that will be the case when I return to China in January. Then I will be on my own, but I'm really not worried about that. And following that, we can also talk about the next question. What do you think of the English levels of the locals? Is it easy for foreigners to survive with the language barrier? So yes, there is a language barrier. Most of the people do not speak English. But what I can also mention is it happened several times that I was asking someone something, for example, for directions, and they did not speak English, but they immediately got their phone out and opened a translation app and tried to help me with the translation app. That happened several times. I think you can see it once in a video as well, where I was at the railway station trying to find my friend. And I think it was the last video, yeah. And situations like that happened a couple of times. So people were very helpful, helping me out with their translation app. Or when I was using my translation app, they were like totally okay with that. They were laughing, sometimes smiling, and yeah, that has never been a problem. So yes, the English can be complicated, but personally, I didn't mind. And I can also think that it would be able to get around and to still have a nice experience despite the language barrier. And then also a ridiculous question actually. Did you see any forced labor or internment camps? Were you followed by the Chinese KGB? Is the media lying about all this? Yeah, I don't really know where these assumptions come from. I didn't see any forced labor. I didn't see any camps. I was not followed by the Chinese government or the Chinese KGB. Yeah, let's go on to the next question. Can foreigners or tourists make Alipay and WeChatpay accounts in China to pay online? So I was actually under the impression that I can't make an Alipay or WeChatPay account without a Chinese banking account. And that's why I didn't even try it, to be honest. And also I was only there for a couple of days and I was with my local friend, so I didn't really worry about that too much. But actually, many of you guys in the comments told me that I actually can link my credit card to Alipay or WeChat Pay. So the next time I'm going back to China, I will look into that more, because yeah, that would make things a lot easier for me. And then I also got a few questions on Instagram. By the way, if you're not following me on Instagram yet, feel free to do so. Ken Abroad on Instagram, and there you can also see in which country I'm currently in. Instagram is always the most up to date, so feel free to follow me there as well. And then the first Instagram question: how's China different from Hong Kong? Which one do you like more? So in case you don't know, I have been to Hong Kong for almost a month earlier this year. I also visited Macau on that trip, and I also really liked Hong Kong and Macau a lot. Hong Kong was also a very interesting city with a lot of different sites. You have like the big city centers, you have mountains around, you have beaches. I even heard of little islands around Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is a very diverse place to visit, which I found very interesting. But also China, of course, is a very diverse and interesting place. So the first big difference I can think of is the level of English. In Hong Kong, more people spoke English, which is due to their past with the English, with the British. So getting around with English was a bit easier in Hong Kong than it was in Shanghai. But then also a difference I noticed is Shanghai is more modern. Shanghai is cleaner. Doesn't mean that Hong Kong was dirty, but if I compare it now, Shanghai was a bit more organized, cleaner, and just more modern. But which one I like more? That's a tough question. I really liked Hong Kong, and I'm very curious to go back to Hong Kong. But I also really like Shanghai, so I can't really answer that. And then, yeah, the next question from Instagram: will you come visit more cities in China going forward? And yeah, I'm very keen to visit China again. Now that I can get 15 days without a visa in China, it's very easy for me to go back to China. And yeah, I'm thinking about starting in Beijing. But yeah, once again, please let me know your suggestions in the comments. Which Chinese cities should I visit? What would you suggest? Maybe a route for 15 days in China, a couple of days in each city. There are many interesting cities in China, like also many cities that have like 10 million people, and we in the West or in Germany have never heard of these cities before. So yeah, please let me know. I'm very curious to come back to China. And then, what did surprise you the most about China? And I do think what surprised me the most was really how quiet Shanghai is. Like, I remember when I stepped out of the metro station after my arrival, and I was like, wow, what's going on? It's so quiet here. And then, yeah, later on I learned, for example, that many of the cars are electric, honking is not allowed, all the motorbikes, the scooters are all electric. So that, of course, reduces the noise level, the noise pollution. So I was really surprised how peaceful, calm, and quiet Shanghai is, given the fact that it's a city of 26 million people. So that was probably the most surprise. And then also what surprised me was how open the people actually are. Like I said earlier, many people were like very curious to speak to me despite the language barrier, open, friendly, kind, welcoming. So the people were really nice. I can't really say that's a big surprise because, to be honest, I was not expecting that the people there were rude or unwelcoming. So I can't really say that was a big surprise, but that was a nice feeling, you know? And then let's talk about money. How much did your China trip cost? Air travel, visa, transport, hotel, food, sightseeing, etc. So there was no fee for the 6-day visa. You know, I had the 6-day transit visa. And then air travel. So I traveled from Bangkok to Shanghai, and then from Shanghai I flew to Singapore. And now I am not in Singapore anymore, by the way. So all in all, for the 6 days, including flights, including hotel, including food, everything, I paid around $1,000, which comes down, let me calculate the cost per day then quickly. So 1,000 divided by 6 comes down to around $166 per day. But yeah, a big part of that were actually the flights. And actually, I got a lot of questions about the costs in Shanghai. Let's talk about that quickly. So that was a surprise as well. Connecting to the previous question, Shanghai wasn't as expensive as I would have thought. So you can get decent meals. If you go to a local restaurant, you can get big portions, for example, of noodles with beef or pork inside for like 15 to 20 yuan, which is like $2 to $3. The hotel I had, I only stayed in one hotel, so I can't really compare. The hotel I paid was a Western chain hotel by Marriott Hotel. I paid $70 a night. The hotel was really nice, a decent room. I had breakfast included. So all in all, I would say Shanghai is a bit pricier than Southeast Asia. But for example, Shanghai was also cheaper than Hong Kong or Singapore. And yeah, all in all, I was not paid by the Chinese government. I was not scared to say my honest opinion. It's crazy that many people just can't believe that I, as a tourist, had a genuinely good experience in China, that I genuinely liked the country as a tourist based on the 6 days I spent there. And if you haven't seen my previous video where I went to the Venice of Shanghai, a little bit outside of the city center, then feel free to check out the video right here. Stay healthy, stay positive, and then see you on the next episode. Ciao guys.